Hi everyone, hope you're all well. Start this video by saying thanks to everyone that's been subscribing, watching the videos, comments. I've had some great comments. To be honest with you, when I set up doing the videos, I didn't expect anyone to subscribe, so that's a bonus. And yeah, it's really just to give everyone a bit more information on the ponds that we do. Hopefully, you can take some pointers away from it and hopefully enjoy the videos. So today we are doing one of our regular maintenance contracts. We come over around once a month to come and service the filters. The customers away a lot with business work. So yeah, we come over roughly once a month, service all the filters, do water tests and just check the fish and the general health of the pond. So I will spin you around and we'll have a look at it. Right then, here's a pond. It's 5 metres by 2 metres by a metre deep, so we're on 10,000 litres. A bit more with the filter, which just over the back there. I'll show you that later. Yeah, got some lovely fish in there. A couple of lovely yamabuki's, not sure it's sorry. Butterfly koi aren't my biggest favourite, but they're, to be honest, there's some nice little Hietsuri butterfly koi in there. It's got 2 blades at the back there. As I say, with having blades, unfortunately, you're always going to get the water going down the water. You'll always get some build-up of either green algae or that's dead algae on there, so it's gone orange over winter. Yeah, we've got one central bottom drain, which you might just be able to see just down there. And that feeds to a nexus filter, which we'll be cleaning in a bit. And there's a nice window at the front there. We've just quoted to, built this pond about 8-10 years ago, but we've just done a quote to actually, all could just do with the liquor paint, and there's a couple of options that we might be doing on the front of the pond, but obviously it'll definitely involve changing the beads over, which are starting to rust because it just looks a bit messy now, so that needs doing. But yeah, we will be starting this on the maintenance by doing a water test. Absolutely imperative at this time of year. The sun's come out, so your fish will start feeding, but obviously the water temperature still isn't that high, so it's going to take a lot longer for your filter to establish and build up. So you must be checking your water to make sure. We have multiple health visits and people coming into the shop, and they've kept koi for years. We ask them if they've tested the water, and we get the response of, oh, I never have any problems with my water. So lo and behold, when we test it, there's an issue. So yeah, you must keep a check on it. Make sure all your parameters are within what they should be. Yep, we'll get cracking and I'll go through with what you do with here. Sorry, I'll get cracking and we'll go through it as we do it. Yeah, the water testing, we'll be doing ammonia, nitrite, pH and KH. Obviously your KH now is probably almost more important than your pH, to be honest, to make sure that you've got stable water. We still check the pH, but say the KH, especially where we are, the area we live in now, the water, it's got very low KH, so a lot of the ponds we're finding we have to buffer the KH to make sure that you don't have a pH crash and maintain a good pH. Right then, we've given the test 10 minutes just for the ammonia and nitrite to develop. So obviously the pH is instant. I don't know if you can see the colours exactly, but yeah, that's between 8 to 8.5, so that's fine on pH. And then the KH was 7 drops for it to turn from blue to yellow. Ammonia, that's on yellow, which is lovely. That means there's no ammonia. And then the nitrite has also stayed clear, so that's showing no nitrite, which is great news. But as I say, always worth a test just to make sure. Next we're going to give round them blades a clean up, and then we'll have a look at the JBL auto feeder and then give the filters a clean. Right then, the JBL auto feeder, we've installed quite a few of these and sold quite a few and we've had good reports. So it's got this big solar panel on the top, so that will keep the battery charged just in case we're not getting enough sunshine. It has also got this which goes over to a plug, so this is also where it can be plugged in, and then this is also just a thermostat which will tell you the temperature of your water if you wish. We know the temperature on here, so we're not using that. We've got another thermometer in there. So this will hold up to 25 litres of food. Plenty of room in there. Starting to get a bit empty now, so we'll have to top that up at some point. And then you open that up and you've got your main interface, which obviously we've got the power on there. This is a manual feed, so if we push that, it will show the volume of how much it's going to feed. So we'll put that to 2, and then that should fire out some food for them. There's a setting within it as well, so you can have the food going from half a metre up to a metre, depending on how big your pond is and how far you want to shoot the food. We've only got it on half a metre because this pond's long but not very wide. And then, so that's the volume for when you want to increase the volume on the feeds. That's obviously the hours, and that's the minutes. And then we've got already on this, that's to set the time. And then we click it again, we go into feed 1 is at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then feed 2 is at 1 o'clock. We're only on volume 1 at the moment as the temperatures are only just warming up. And then when it's blank like this, that's basically not set to feed, but this will, if you can see there, it just keeps on going up on the numbers, because this will do up to 24 feeds a day. So we like to keep it on regular feeding with a smaller volume, so you get maximum growth out of your fish, because they're getting to use all the nutrients and make the most of the food. So yeah, brilliant auto feeders, and I'd highly recommend them. And next we'll be cleaning the filters. The filters are located underneath there, and it's all one massive section that lifts up all in one, and we'll show you how that's done. Yeah, obviously hiding filter chambers is always very difficult. We have this little weight on there just to keep it cropped down to make sure the wind can't get under it, but by the help of gas struts, it's as easy as that. So yeah, this is the filter chamber, as I just showed you. We've got these gas struts on here, which we use quite a bit. They've got, you can't see it on there, but let me get in and then you'll be able to see. So I will put a link again in the description, because they're great. I mean, this, to give you some context, this filter lid without the gas struts, I can hardly move it, let alone lift it. So they'll lift in some serious force. And if you can just see in there, there's a little Allen key screw. So you buy the gas struts, and then once you set it all up, you actually undo this bleed valve with an Allen key, and then you can release some of the gas out of there, so you can get it set to the correct pressure. So you don't have to buy the exact right one. You can just set it to the pressure that you need to actually open the lid up. The only thing I would say about these as well is these screws and where it fixes on the wall, obviously they're under a massive amount of pressure. So do make sure that you're using some very strong fixings. And what we did find as well, because we've done them in the past, is make sure your screws are stainless steel and they're not going to rust, because that's normally what goes on them, is that you use screws which, even if you're using a big nice hefty screw, over time if it starts to rust it will become weak and it will just break. So, but yeah, they're absolutely ideal for lifting. You know, if this is all in one section, it's got to be, so it's the same width as the pond, so just over 2 meters on that width, and then it's about 1.5 meters wide. So yeah, it's a good old weight that it's lifting. Right then, I'd previously turned everything off because it's a bit noisy while I was trying to do the talking, because we've got the air pumps in here and the blades are running and stuff. So yeah, everything's off and nice and peaceful. Lovely day for it again. So we've got the 220, which is the slightly older model. We're on the 220 plus now, but the only difference is the media in there. So there's no point in changing that out, to be honest. There's nothing wrong with the original K plus media. And as you can see, we've got the sieve as well, the Cetus sieve. Now, slightly strange configuration of pipe, because when this, I can't remember exactly how it came about. I don't know whether the customer may have had the sieve and then we supplied the nexus, but yeah, they wanted us to hook up both, the sieve to take out the bigger particles and stuff and then go into the nexus. So the only way you can do that is you use what we call a balance pipe. So I'll try to explain it as clear as I can to you. So
if you can see past that 4-inch pipe just there, where the other gate valve is, just down there, it comes in from the bottom drain, it runs along there, across there, into the sieve, and then it's pulled out from the sieve into the pump down there. Now, what happens then is it pumps back out of here, and it actually goes back into the main line of the bottom drain, and then that continues along up into the nexus, and then you have another pump that's drawing from the nexus. So the principle is obviously why you're pumping back into this pipe is that this acts as a balance pipe, so if one of the pumps stops or anything else, water can still get through and it can all level itself out without the nexus. If you were just continually pumping to the nexus, it would overflow, so instead it would go back down there. So it's just kind of a fail safe. Now, this was the first system we had ever done, which was probably about 8-10 years ago. The first system that we'd ever done with a balance pipe, and if I'm being completely honest with you, it was the last system that we ever did with the balance pipe. The Evolution Aqua products are absolutely brilliant, and you know, they revolutionised bio moving bed filtration, as say for the volume of bio waste that can handle with using a moving bed is phenomenal. And the Cetus sieve, again, it's a brilliant product. I just feel it needs to be used on either A, pulling from a gravity fed skimmer, or pulling from a bottom drain and then going to something like a bead filter or perhaps up to a backy shower, but trying to combine it with the nexus and having the balance pipe, it just never really worked that great. What we actually found was the bellow went on the sieve, so that wasn't working properly, so the customer shut that off, and they were doing the maintenance on the filter, and they were doing that, and before we could get out to actually change the bellow and sort it out, they actually found that the maintenance on the nexus was pretty much exactly the same as when they had the sieve running. So they actually asked us not to bother putting it back on, and they haven't, because it's obviously one less pump to run. And as I say, it wasn't making any difference to the pond, the clarity, anything else. And if anything, when it was off, it probably actually helped the clarity of the pond. And my only explanation that I can think of, if I can explain this to you, is with the sieve, when it pulls down, obviously all the water and the waste comes through. Now, catching leaves, algae, any big solids, brilliant. But where I think you get a problem is fish waste is very soft. And I think when it was falling onto the sieve and then it's getting more water falling on top of it, I think it was slightly breaking it down. Some of it was going through the sieve, and then being as it's then pulling through a pump and getting churned up in the impeller, it's almost liquidizing it even more before it gets put to the filter, before it goes to the nexus. Now, without that involved, when you're just using a bottom drain straight to the nexus, what I think happens is the big solids come through, and being as they're quite heavy on the bigger solids, they just settle in the chamber around the outside. And what we found is with the sieve on, the inner section here, being as I think it was getting much smaller particles going in, this was actually clogging faster than without the sieve running. So as I say, I'm sure there's probably people that may have this system running, and I've seen people asking about it on social media and such like, but in all honesty, I would just stick with just having a bottom drain going straight to the nexus. It's tried and tested, it works absolutely fine, and I just don't think, as I say, unless you're running it off a skimmer or off a bottom drain to go to a different type of filtration system like a bead filter, being as they're pressurised, I just don't think there's any need for it, to be honest. So that's my opinion, and as I say, I would just hook up a nexus. They work an absolute treat. And you know, on talking about filtration, obviously I'm sure you've seen from previous videos, I'm a big advocate for the drum filters, and obviously cost wise it's not always possible. We'd probably all have to love to have a drum on our ponds, but yeah, cost wise it's not always possible. And I always think with filtration you've got kind of three categories that you need to look at. Is obviously the space that you've got to put your filters in. So obviously depending on the room, obviously the size of your filter chamber, you need to look at what you can actually fit in there. You then got the cost of how much it's going to cost you to A, purchase it, and B, the continued running cost on parts and such like. And then 3, you've got to look at the maintenance that's involved. So if you're doing the maintenance yourself on the filter, it's how much time you've got to give to that filter. Now you can get the self-cleaning kits for the Nexus. Obviously that's an extra cost, and it's whether you can afford that cost, or whether you've got more time to spend on the filter. What I do love about the Nexus without the cleaning kit is, except for occasionally changing these out, and I would just say, if you haven't got a lid covering or anything covering the Nexus, I would try and get it covered, because these and this air pipe, it does perish quite easy in the sun. But other than changing them out occasionally, you've got no mechanical parts on there that can actually go wrong and break particularly. So you know, you haven't got pumps, wash pumps, motors, anything else. So as far as that goes, they're an absolute brilliant system. As long as you've got the time and the ability to clean it, then it's a great filter system. Right, I'll try and keep, let me just grab that. I will try to keep out of the way while I'm doing the clean, so we can show you. But yeah, the principle of cleaning the Nexus is obviously very simple and straightforward, to be honest. They give you as well, when you actually buy the Nexus, they actually give you a lovely laminated cleaning instructions, which tells you how to get them clean and what you need to do. But as I said previously, we've turned the UV off and the pump off. So once you've turned them off, on this one we've got a slide valve here, so we can isolate. If you haven't got the slide valve, hopefully you can see that on the video, they supply you with that, so that can slide in there. You'll still get a certain small amount of water coming through, but it will shut the water off enough to do the clean. But as I say, being as we've got a slide valve on there, we don't use that. But right, so we've shut the valve off. We will then put the stand pipe in. I will also have to turn the air pump back on, so it will be a bit noisy just while we're doing the clean. Right, at the moment we've got the air going to the outer chamber. Obviously we need it going to the inner chamber. So that's opening the inner chamber, which I'd always advise to open that one up first, and then we will close off the outer chamber. We're just going to let that boil now for a few minutes. You might be able to see on here as well, we've drilled a hole, and that's just because the water level, it can come up quite high in this pond. So if it goes off, if for any reason the pump fails and goes off, rather than this bubbling and coming out, that's just a fail safe. Obviously there's that plate there, so the media can't get through, but the water will just come out of there, and then the sump pump will take it away. Yeah, that's been boiling now for a few minutes, so we'll now open the waste valve. Right then, the inner chamber's all drained down now. I do always find on these, obviously when we open it we're going to purge the bottom drain, but I also, out of habit, we always do at least 2 boils just to get it really clean. Obviously if you have the auto clean kit on, it will only do 1, but you can do that more regularly then, so it's not really a problem. Whereas being as this is intermittently getting cleaned by me and the customer, I find it gives a much cleaner finish if you do at least 2 boils on it. Yeah, when we purged it, coming through that black, I decided to dump that water, and then we'll do a boil on it now with some cleaner water. That little shape doesn't look like much, but it always gets a bit of extra gunk off the sides. If you are cleaning it manually as well, I always find you can pull this pipe out, it actually back flushes it, and it does seem to just bring a bit of crap back through. And any bits of media or anything, the top edge down there. Yeah, always think it's well worth pulling that standpipe out, and then the water goes from here and back up the middle chute, so you're just giving it a quick backwash. So sometimes you'll be amazed how much crap comes up through the middle, and that obviously can slow the water down from getting from this chamber to here. I see quite a lot of difference in it sometimes, but after doing the backwash, you remove some of that gunk and then it flows freely again. Well, being as that's still fairly filthy, I'm actually going to do 3 on this one. Well, then we'll drain that off for the final time. Quick flush just to get rid of any gunk off the bottom. Shut the waste back off. Open that one back up so the air is going back to the outer chamber. Open our valve up. Standpipe out the middle, and that's it all done. And it's just a case of turning it all back on. You can start running again. Right, then all the filters are done. Pond is all clean. We've just cleaned off the window, so there's a few bits of solids floating around in the pond. They'll go out of the next couple of days. Managed to give them blades a jet wash off, which has made the back of them look a lot nicer now. I was just going to show you as well, this customer uses clay in T-Labs Mediclay. Now, I know a lot of people use clay, a lot of people don't use clay. In all honesty, I can't even give an opinion on it, because being as it's not my pond, I don't see the fish enough to know if I would actually say the clay is making much difference. The customer has said to us that it also, they reckon it's definitely made an improvement on water clarity. She has been using it for a while now, and I think it's just one of them things that, being as she has been using it and she doesn't have any problems with the fish, the water clarity, the water quality, that she just continues to use it. So we'll do a dose of that, and then we will be all done on this one. Right, that's us all done on this one, so on to the next one, and we shall see you on the next video.